During my husband's absence, I engaged in this activity with our horse, an authentic tale of betrayal. Aina burst from the house, her hands shaking as they gripped her flimsy coat with urgency. The biting wind screamed through the fields, yet she pressed on undeterred, racing toward the barn. The heavy darkness enveloped her surroundings, with merely the soft glow of the lantern swaying outside the barn, illuminating the night like a far-off beacon, beckoning her nearer. She paused before the imposing wooden door, her heart racing with such intensity that it seemed ready to explode from her chest. Within the confines of the stable, the gentle yet purposeful sound of hooves shuffling resonated, as if the horse were anticipating her arrival, or perhaps possessed an innate awareness of her approach. Aina nudged the door ajar, the groan of the hinges cutting through the heavy stillness. Stellan loomed before her, a figure of grandeur, his piercing black eyes fixed intently upon her. With a deep breath, she approached the horse, each step measured and intentional. The atmosphere in the barn was thick, each inhalation and every shift in position imbued with a weight that eluded her understanding. "You were anticipating my arrival, weren't you?" Her voice emerged as a mere whisper, tender and intimate like a secret shared in the quietest of moments. Stellan inclined his head ever so slightly, a subtle movement that seemed to convey a response. His gaze held a depth that spoke volumes, a silent communication that ensnared Aina, leaving her motionless, captivated and unable to tear her eyes from him. After years of feeling invisible, she finally experienced the profound sensation of being genuinely seen and heard, a stark contrast to her time with Lucas. An intense wave of feeling swept over her, a blend of solace and danger. Her fingers glided through Stellan's mane, a gentle touch that allowed the warmth of his body to flow into her fingertips. It surged through her, an electric current racing down her spine, and in that instant, she understood that her life had transformed forever. The wind outside persisted in its relentless howling, yet Aina had grown indifferent to its presence. All that surrounded her dissolved into a hushed stillness. Only she and Stellan remained, entwined with a growing secret that wove its way through the shadows, a flame ready to spark into life. Aina remained motionless in the barn, her fingers lightly brushing against Stellan's mane, her eyes wandering into the far-off emptiness. With her eyes shut tight, she drew in a deep breath, letting the aromas of parched hay, moist soil, and the gentle warmth of the horse beside her envelop her senses. In this serene sanctuary, she sensed a profound escape from it all, the frigid, soulless house, Lucas's empty gazes, and the relentless solitude that had slowly consumed her spirit for years. Memories surged within her, overwhelming like a powerful tide. Once, Aina held the conviction that love possessed the power to overcome all obstacles. She and Lucas were once a pair of blazing flames, fierce and unyielding in their bond. She recalled the moment they first crossed paths, how Lucas had effortlessly drawn laughter from her, causing tears to cascade down her cheeks with his sharp wit and innate charisma. She remembered the lengthy evenings by the fire, exchanging visions of a radiant future. In those days, Lucas vowed to remain by her side, crafting a life together that they would both hold dear. Yet, as time flowed onward, those promises transformed into a rare indulgence. Lucas immersed himself in his work, with endless meetings and business trips that dragged on, leaving Aina unable to recall the last time they shared a dinner without the constant buzz of his phone interrupting their moments together. Each time he returned home, it felt as though a stranger had walked through the door. He would enter the room, casually toss his bag aside, embrace her briefly, and then retreat behind the glow of his laptop screen. Aina had made every effort, truly made every effort to cling on. She crafted intimate dinners, sought to rekindle their past dialogues. Yet Lucas consistently brushed her off with the same tired refrain. "I find myself utterly exhausted, Aina. Shall we converse at a later time?" Yet the anticipated moment never arrived. She once held the conviction that time possessed the power to mend all wounds, yet it merely deepened the divide that separated them. Lucas was not an ill-intentioned man. He did not embody the traits of unfaithfulness, anger, or neglect in the traditional manner. Yet his indifference enveloped Aina, leaving her to feel as though she was gradually disappearing, transforming into a specter within the confines of her own marriage. When Lucas acquired Stellan, she believed it was merely another passing fascination of his. Yet Stellan had emerged as the sole beacon of light in Aina's otherwise dreary existence. Within the horse's profound, expressive gaze, She discovered a tranquility that had eluded her for years. Yet it was more than that. Aina found it impossible to erase the memory of her first encounter with Evelyn, the horse trainer that Lucas had brought on board. Evelyn was a striking figure, her keen gaze cutting through pretense, accompanied by a subtle melancholy that suggested a depth of personal struggles. Evelyn was not one for many words, yet when she chose to speak, her remarks pierced through the air like arrows, striking at the truths Aina had long evaded. She recalled that afternoon when she and Evelyn lingered outside the barn, engaged in conversation about Stellan. Evelyn's eyes locked onto hers, a penetrating gaze that seemed to strip away every facade of Aina's being. And then she uttered a sentence that would forever echo in Aina's memory. Horses like Stellan possess an uncanny ability to perceive the truths that humans often shy away from acknowledging. At times, it is the solitude that creates the most profound connections. In that moment, Aina merely offered a polite smile and dismissed it with a wave of her hand. Yet, as she faced Stellan, the resonance of Evelyn's words lingered in her thoughts, almost prophetic in their weight. Though she hesitated to admit it, there was a chance that Evelyn had indeed been correct. It was her solitude, the void that Lucas failed to occupy, that had gradually pulled her toward Stellan inch by inch. Her fingers glided gently through Stellan's mane, savoring the warmth that radiated beneath her touch. "You know, Stellan," she whispered, "at times I find myself longing to embody the essence of a horse, much like you do. All is calm, no conflicts to engage in, merely liberation." Stellan remained silent, yet his eyes conveyed a deep understanding. In that instant, Aina experienced a brief wave of relief wash over her. Yet, beneath the surface, she understood that everything was shifting, and there was no turning back. The moonlight spilled over the fields, casting a gentle glow on the slender path that wound its way to the barn. Aina moved deliberately, each step measured, as if an unseen force was drawing her closer to Stellan. The wind intensified, its chill biting at her skin, yet she remained unfazed. Within her a tumult was brewing, both indistinct and all-consuming, as though her heart was beckoning her toward a destination her mind struggled to grasp. The barn door swung ajar, its hinges lamenting in the quiet embrace of the night. Stellan lingered in the stillness, his dark, enigmatic eyes mirroring the soft glow of the moonlight. In that instant, Aina sensed the very fabric of her surroundings begin to fade away. Lucas had departed, leaving behind the frigid, detached phone calls and the interminable solitary evenings that once filled the air. It was just her and Stellan, intertwined in a connection that needed no words to define it. "So you found yourself waiting for me once more, did you?" she whispered, her voice a hushed echo of a clandestine truth. She moved nearer, her fingers gliding softly over Stellan's glossy black mane. The gentle warmth of the horse's breath enveloped her, a soft whisper of comfort, serene and unspoken, like a tender promise. She caressed him, allowing her fingers to dance over the sleek strands of his coat. The heaviness in her chest began to dissipate, giving way to a tranquility so unusual it felt almost alien. Yet, in an instant the atmosphere transformed. Aina found herself at a loss, unable to remember what had compelled her to take that action. It might have been the way Stellan's gaze lingered on hers, or the subtle angle of his head that appeared to recognize her caress. Maybe it was the tempest within her, the solitude, the longing, and the empty chasm she had yet to satisfy. Her hand lingered on the side of his face, her palm softly resting against his warmth. With her eyes gently shut, she inhaled deeply, savoring the moment. Yet even that breath quivered. Stellan, his name escaped her lips, not as a summons but as a revelation. The horse moved with a subtle grace, bowing his head as though acknowledging an unspoken cue. His stillness, imbued with a profound comprehension, enveloped Aina in a sensation that he could decipher the tumultuous thoughts dancing within her mind. His gaze locked onto hers, profound and devoid of judgment, asking for nothing, yet so captivating that she found herself unable to turn away. Her breath became increasingly labored. She inched nearer, as if the distance separating them was an insurmountable gulf that demanded connection. A prolonged silence enveloped them, heavy with unspoken expectations. Her hand settled gently on Stellan's chest, where she could sense the steady, powerful rhythm of his heart pulsing beneath her fingertips. Yet within her, a tumultuous rhythm pulsed, poised to fracture her facade. She ceased her thoughts. In that moment, for the very first time, every shred of reason, Every concept of morality and all whispers of logic faded into silence. She found herself confronted with the unfiltered intensity of her emotions, or maybe a fragment of herself that had been buried for far too long. With a single tentative step and a subtle shift of her weight, Anna's entire existence unraveled before her eyes. She had become a shadow of her former self. She had shed the weary, empty shell of Anna that she once was. She was a woman enveloped in emotions that were entirely foreign to her. Yet, just then, a subtle sound shattered the enchantment. Anna recoiled, as though she had been abruptly pulled from a vivid reverie. A faint shaft of light pierced the darkness of the barn, and in that moment her heart froze. Evelyn lingered in the doorway, her keen eyes, sharp as a dagger, locked onto Anna with unwavering intensity. Without uttering a single word, Anna understood everything. Evelyn had witnessed it all. The atmosphere within the barn was imbued with an icy stillness. Evelyn remained still, her face a blend of astonishment and icy deliberation, as if she were assembling the fragments of the tableau she had just encountered. Anna parted her lips, yet silence enveloped her, leaving her thoughts unspoken. Her breath rose in the cold night air, a silent confession lingering between the stars. Shame, guilt, and fear weighed heavily on her chest, yet within the depths of her being, an unexpected sense of relief began to stir. A sense of liberation washed over her as the weight of her secret was shared at last. Anna. Evelyn's voice pierced the stillness, steady yet resolute. What do you believe you are up to? The straightforward inquiry sliced through the atmosphere with precision. Evelyn entered the barn, her steps deliberate and measured. Anna stumbled back, yet Stellan remained steadfast, a solid anchor amidst the swirling chaos around her. I'm uncertain. Anna's voice faltered, a fragile tremor lacing her words. Evelyn halted mere feet away, her piercing gaze penetrating deep into Anna's essence. Are you grasping the direction this is taking? Evelyn inquired, her tone subdued yet each syllable striking with the force of a punch. You're toying with danger, Anna, and when the flames consume everything, there will be no remnants to recover. Anna found herself at a loss for words. She stood there, locked in a gaze with Evelyn, as a tempest of emotions raged within her. She understood that Evelyn was correct. She recognized the truth woven within those words. Yet, despite that awareness, she found herself unable to halt her actions. Not at this moment. Not when she had already ventured beyond a boundary she once believed she would never breach. Evelyn stood resolutely before Anna, her eyes piercing like a finely honed edge. The oppressive atmosphere in the barn enveloped Anna, constricting her chest as if the very air had turned to lead, leaving her gasping for breath. She found herself unable to escape Evelyn's gaze, unable to refute the reality of what had just transpired, and unable to conjure any rationale that could possibly excuse her behavior. Did you honestly believe this would remain hidden, Anna? Evelyn's voice held a steady cadence, infused with a simmering undercurrent of restrained anger. Did you believe that no one would perceive the transformation within you, the shift in your gaze each time you step out of this barn? Anna stepped back, her fingers gripping Stellan's mane tightly, as though it were the sole anchor preventing her from unraveling. Yet Stellan, the horse she had once thought comprehended her more deeply than anyone else, now remained mute. Silence envelopes the scene, an absence of motion and sound, yet a palpable presence lingers, observing all from an unattainable distance. I didn't mean to, Anna croaked, her voice raspy and strained. She understood that her words held no significance. She found herself unable to refute Evelyn's observations, yet the depths of her feelings eluded her grasp, an overwhelming tide that carried her off like an irresistible tempest. Didn't intend to? Evelyn released a brief, cutting laugh, laced with a sense of bitter irony. Anna, this isn't merely a spontaneous occurrence. It's a deliberate decision, and you are fully aware of your actions. Evelyn's words hit Anna with the force of a physical blow. Yet rather than feeling regret, she sensed herself teetering on the brink of an abyss. The tempest within her, a tumult of shame, anger, and an aching yearning surged, poised to erupt at any moment. What makes it matter to you? Anna's voice cut through the air, sharper and louder than she had meant, teetering on the edge of a shout. This is my existence. You cannot fathom the trials I've faced, nor can you grasp the depth of my solitude. Evelyn's expression remained steadfast. You're right, Evelyn replied, her voice soft yet laden with significance. I don't know everything, yet I am certain of one thing. You are unraveling not only your own being but also impacting everyone in your vicinity. Aina sensed a vulnerability, as if she were laid open to the world. She lingered in that moment, caught between Evelyn's chilling, penetrating stare and the eerie stillness that enveloped Stellan. All the justifications, all the excuses she had woven for herself now seemed utterly hollow. She was merely a woman ensnared, overwhelmed by emotions that eluded her grasp. Lucas will never understand, Aina murmured, her voice fading to a whisper. She averted her gaze, her eyes glimmering in the moonlight that filtered through the fissures in the barn wall. He has never truly grasped the essence of who I am. Not quite. So, is this the reason behind your actions? Evelyn moved nearer, the space that separated them dwindling to mere strides. Aina, my intention is not to pass judgment on you. However, it is essential to grasp this concept. Your current actions will not lead to the liberation you believe they will. It will only exacerbate the situation. Aina felt a surge of frustration, a burning desire to shout that Evelyn was completely missing the point. Yet how could she possibly refute the truth woven into Evelyn's words? How could she possibly turn a blind eye to the undeniable truth that she had traversed a boundary from which there was no return? A sharp sound pierced the stillness, slicing through the quiet with the precision of a knife. Aina halted abruptly, her gaze darting toward the source of the noise. The car's headlights cast a beam that cut through the darkness of the field, sharp and precise like a blade. Lucas. Her heart clenched and a chill washed over her, leaving her frozen in that moment. Evelyn cast a look at Aina, her keen eyes softening ever so slightly, a flicker of unusual sympathy dancing in her gaze. You must make a decision, Aina, Evelyn said, her voice softened yet unwavering. At this very moment, confront the consequences of your actions, or risk becoming further entangled in this chaos. Aina felt her breath quicken as Lucas's car approached, the headlights casting a glow on the barn wall and revealing her pale, distressed expression. Uncertainty enveloped her, leaving her at a loss for words and actions. She was acutely aware that every secret, every emotion she had meticulously concealed, now hung precariously on the edge of revelation. Aina, Evelyn declared once more, her tone resolute and steadfast. This is your moment to decide, and the power to make that decision lies solely with you. With a glance at Evelyn, then Stellan, Aina's gaze drifted back to the oncoming headlights. Her mind swirled in a tempest of confusion, yet her heart beat with a piercing clarity that transcended all else, as if it were striving to lead her forward. In that instant, she understood that escape was no longer an option. The headlights sliced through the night, casting a bright glow on the barn door and highlighting every nuance of Aina's worried expression with piercing clarity. She remained still, as though the very fabric of time had come to a halt. Evelyn stepped back, creating a gap for Aina, yet she remained in place. Evelyn's keen gaze, typically frigid and resolute, now possessed a subdued, attentive calm, as if she were poised for Aina to reach her ultimate conclusion. The vehicle halted just beyond the threshold of the barn. Lucas emerged, his towering figure stretching a lengthy shadow beneath the stark illumination of the headlights. The car door closed with a sharp thud, and the stillness enveloped the surroundings once more. He paused, his gaze sweeping the surroundings momentarily before he made his way toward the barn. Is that you, Aina? Is anyone home? Lucas called, his voice steady, just as it had always been. Yet to Aina, it resonated like thunder reverberating through the tranquil night. She pivoted to face him, their gazes locking, and in that fleeting moment, she understood he held a secret. Perhaps it lacked clarity, or maybe it was merely an instinctive sensation, yet he was aware. I couldn't sleep, she said, her voice steadying as best as she could manage, though the tremor in her breath betrayed her. I simply wished to inquire about Stellan. Lucas entered the barn, his gaze shifting from Aina to Evelyn, who lingered a few paces away, quiet and motionless like a shadow. His brows knitted together, his eyes darting between the two women, sensing the unvoiced tension that lingered thickly in the confined room. Is there something happening? He inquired, his voice laced with curiosity, his gaze searching. Evelyn remained silent. Aina was aware that she would not. This was her moment to confront the reality, to embrace the accountability for all that she had fought so hard to conceal. All gazes converged upon her, and she sensed that every avenue had shrunk into a singular focus. She could weave another tale, extending the heavy shroud of secrets and guilt that weighed upon her. Or she could face it all head-on, the shame, the pain, and the vulnerability that had long haunted her. The very thing she had been so terrified to confront. Her eyes darted to Evelyn, whose demeanor, serene yet resolute, exuded an unmistakable challenge. Then to Lucas, whose eyes, though heavy with concern, held a flicker of uncertainty she found impossible to overlook. She understood that the endless flight could not continue. "Lucas," she began, her voice heavy with emotion. I have something to share with you." Lucas stood still, his gaze sharpening with a hint of bewilderment. He remained still, a silent observer, his eyes fixed intently on hers. Evelyn tilted her face just enough, retreating a step as if to bestow upon them a semblance of privacy, yet she remained within the confines of the barn. Aina inhaled deeply, her thoughts swirling like a tempest, each word caught in the web of her throat. She reflected on the moments when she had truly lost herself, the instances when she gazed into Stellan's eyes and discovered the comfort that Lucas had never managed to provide. She contemplated the longing, the embarrassment, the urgency, and realized that if she remained silent now, those emotions would confine her for eternity. "I felt so alone, Lucas," she said, her voice trembling, tears cascading down her cheeks. "It has lingered within me for what feels like an eternity, and I find myself at a loss for how to break free from its grasp. Every moment shared with you, every connection we once had, now seems to have faded into insignificance." Lucas paused, his silence lingering in the air. He lingered in that moment, his gaze probing hers, as if he sought to unearth the reality concealed within her utterances. "What are you trying to convey, Aina?" His voice resonated softly, each syllable carrying a palpable weight that she could feel. She continued, her voice trembling. "I've been seeking solace in a place where I know I shouldn't. I find myself adrift, Lucas. It's difficult to articulate, yet I find myself having crossed a threshold." Lucas took a step back, his eyes widening in disbelief at the words that reached his ears. He repeated, his voice rough and barely audible, "Crossed a line." Aina experienced a tightening in her chest, as though an unseen force was gripping her heart. "I can't quite put it into words," she said. "I realize that I've allowed myself to drift too far, and now there's no turning back." She steeled herself for the impending fury of Lucas, anticipating his voice to rise or his departure to be swift and dramatic. Yet he chose not to. He remained rooted to the spot, gazing at her, his expression a complex web of feelings she struggled to unravel. At last he uttered a word, his tone deep and weighty. "Do you still hold love for me, Aina?" That seemingly innocuous question dismantled the fragile barriers she had managed to uphold. Aina gazed at him, tears cascading down her cheeks without restraint. "I'm uncertain, Lucas. I find myself at a loss now, yet I yearn to rediscover it. I seek to comprehend the reasons behind our current state of being." Evelyn held her silence, yet Aina sensed her presence, unwavering and resolute, observing it all. With a quiet resolve, Lucas pivoted and exited the barn, leaving behind the unspoken tension that lingered in the air. His silhouette dissolved into the soft glow of the car's headlights, leaving Aina alone, a profound emptiness enveloping her like never before. Evelyn drew near, her keen gaze now imbued with an unexpected tenderness. "You did the right thing," she said, her voice soft yet resolute. Aina remained silent. She pivoted to face Stellan, who remained rooted in place, his profound dark eyes fixed on her, as if they contained all the answers she was desperately seeking. She moved nearer, her fingers gliding softly through his mane for what felt like the final time. In that instant, clarity washed over her, revealing the path she must take. She was compelled to exit the barn, to abandon the shadows into which she had willingly descended for an eternity. Outside, the moon hung in the sky, its cold light spilling over the landscape, while Aina moved forward into the night. She bore with her the weight of pain and regret, yet within that burden flickered a glimmer of hope, a belief that perhaps one day, she would rediscover her true self.